Hey guys, Matt from the future here. Yes, I look different. Sancte Paule Apostole, which is the disc that I'm talking about in this video, is available to stream on all major streaming sites and is also available as a 2-disc physical CD release. Links will be in the description below. Cheers. I figured I'd tell you about a very cool project I'm up to in the classical world. For anyone who's new here, my name's Matt, I'm an audio engineer and I'm also a freelance violinist and vocalist. And I was approached by one of the choirs that I sing with, Old St Paul's, and they mentioned it had been 10 years since they'd done a full production CD. What with classical music and Pyramix and my Dante workflow and all of my location recording stuff, I couldn't pass this up. So that's what I've been doing this month and I thought I would just tell you guys about it in a very cool way. So here is the recording process of a full-length choral disc. Okay, now that I have a little bit of free time to walk you around the building, this is Old St Paul's in Edinburgh. It's one of the first places that I sang at since moving up here, and I now have the pleasure of doing a full-length 21-ish track disc with this lot. They're a phenomenally talented bunch of singers. This is a project that I've wanted to do for a really long time. So I'm amazed that it's possible, and I'm really grateful that they trust me with their music making. In terms of microphones, what we have is our main pair of Octava MK012s. They're in a cardioid ORTF. Then what we have is something that is used by the engineers at Decca. We have these pair of choral floods. So what happens in choirs is they're usually in two sides, deck and can. These extra pair of flood mics are grouped into close and far so that we can get a more precise element of imaging on the choir where needed. Next we have our organ mics, which are a pair of Octava MK012s. These are meter-spaced omnis. They're for sub-capturing and a bit of detail capturing on the organ as well. Next we have my trusty Aston Spirit. This is going to be used on me as well as other soloists in this disc. As a backup soloist thing in case we have multiple soloists as well, we've also got Audio-Technica 853As, which are usually meant to be hanging stage microphones, but because they have 6 meters of cable length, I've opted to use those with shorter XLR cables so that I can prioritize cabling for the rest of the microphones in this building. Speaking of cabling, we also have a pair of SE X1s. These are the original X1s rather than the X1As, X1Ss, X1Rs, etc, etc. They're on top of one of my tall Manfrotto stands so that they can capture the reverb of the church in as ambient a way as possible. They're about 4 meters high. I think I measured them at a 40 centimeter NOS pair rather than 30 centimeters. I was going to try and do ORTF in like a little arc pointing at the ceiling, and then I realized they were too chunky for that, so had to improvise there. And after seeing how they do this at Chandos, I figured I'd give it a little shot myself. These are 2 Aston Starlights on Atmos ambience mics. This is to add the height element and also kind of capture the absolute back of the room. So when I do end up doing this as an Atmos mix and master, I'll be able to capture pretty much the entire room and all the intricacies thereof. This is all being joint conducted by John Kitchen and Calum Robertson, so we have a little conductor snoop mic there, and that is responsible for talkback between whoever is conducting at the time and myself in the control room with Ryan. Obviously using the Allen & Heath DT168 because that's just easy to carry around rather than dismantling half of my studio, and it works on Dante. Ryan Shearer did all the cabling while I was fanning around making the control room safe and usable as an environment. And we've managed to use like hardly any Cat5e reel. I think we've still got more than half remaining. So turns out 100 meters is a really long length. That Cat5e cabling goes into our little control room, which is like a little vestry smoke room area for the clergy. And we're able to run and control the session from there. We've got redundancy with Pyramix and with Reaper, so everything should be set to run really smoothly. I'll let you know how it goes. And welcome to our humble abode for this project. We have Ryan helping today. We've got 2 laptops, everything's talking to each other over Dante. We've got mine running Pyramix, we've got Ryan's running Reaper. All of the monitoring is coming out of a 2i2 attached to USB, so I've got my speakers for use. Yeah, we've got talkback going through the 2i2 as well. Pyramix's talkback unit is actually quite useful. It kind of has auto stop and auto start for talkback based on the transport play function. There we go, that's a thing. We need to get started, but we'll let you know of any challenges or anything like that at the end. So we reached the end of the disc, and we had a wonderful learning experience throughout. What were some things that kind of got in the way? I found dealing with more people was a bit interesting from a choir perspective, because I've dealt with choirs that I don't know before, and it's been fine. But I think when people know you, there's also like the external factor of like, am I doing a good enough job for these people, and do they hate me now?
Well, yes. Like, are you offending people by saying the same thing that you would say to any performer that's walked into your studio that you don't know? I thought personally, tonight working with individual choir members over the last 2 nights working with choir members, the entire choir plus their conductor, is there was almost a little bit of like, teacher's not here. There was a lot of like...
bit more intimacy as well.
A little bit speaky. But part of that's nice, but part of that's not indicative to keeping to a schedule.
Although, to be fair, given that we covered like such a massive amount of music yesterday,
absolutely
that's another thing that I found a struggle I was fried yesterday. We did however many pieces. I'll put that in text on the screen, and it like blew my brains out. So.
Well, see, like it's a bit easier for me because you're doing the in-depth score reading for your edits later, which is something that
true. And I had to like be scribbling constantly.
Although I was taking part in, I wasn't actually making any specific decisions on that.
Yeah.
Another thing that I would say is that I'm going to stop fooling myself into thinking that Reaper's actually easier to use than Pro Tools, because it just simply isn't, now that I'm used to using Pro Tools.
Yeah, I mean, it's these kind of creature comfort things at the end of the day, where like you know, familiarity plays a massive part in this. Another creature comfort thing which I would have really liked, instead of having to use a mouse for push to talk, I know I want push to talk because I'm just so used to going, right, hello. Instead of having a mouse for push to talk, I would love like a MIDI controller, or because Pyramix can't read MIDI, probably it's going to end up having to be a Dante-based push to talk system.
Yeah.
But there could also be some sort of like ADR or external machine that controls Pyramix, because it can work with those weird D-sub things as well. I learned how to make impulse responses. That was we learned some very interesting things about Reaper. Normally I would do this in macOS because it's got its own dedicated IR maker, but I had to do a workaround in Windows, and then I didn't have Reaper installed, and then I found a tutorial that used Reaper, so we used Ryan's Reaper, but then playing that back through Dante caused clipping and weird artifacts as well, so then I put that into Pyramix, and then it was a whole hullabaloo thing, lots of fun. But now we kind of learn how to do things.
Yes, it was actually fairly simple at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Once we got past the strange issues with the clipping through through Reaper, which appears to have been again a Dante issue that
is unique.
Really make sense.
Well, it seems to be unique per machine. So I guess all this says is, I mean, pro tip for anyone who wants to get into this is test your setup in its entirety.
Yes.
Yeah. TLDR though, it's gone really well. Huge thanks to Ryan, because you've been an absolute lifesaver for this.
That's all good.
And I'll
That's what you pay me for.
This is true. The next time I see you guys is going to be in my studio at home. So I will walk you through the editing, mixing and mastering processes.
Ooh, fun.
I think this might be one of those ones that was a PDF only, sorry.
I am looking busy for the sake of the video site.